Thank you very much. Welcome all. Firstly, take the opportunity to thank His Excellency the Minister of Hydrocarbons for the DRC in that informative discussion and overview of the situation there. And building on that, it gives me great pleasure and thank you for the Gas Exporting Countries Forum for inviting me to facilitate this panel on gas monetization. All of us here that are involved in the LNG business and the gas business, I thought I'd like to set the context for this before handing over to some of our panelists, just to frame some of the discussions and the direction that we'll take in this discussion on gas monetization. I think all of us here recognise that we are in an unprecedented time of change for the sector. And just picking up a few observations, if we're looking on the supply side of the industry, I think there's a growing and genuine risk that reserves that have not been developed at this point in time are going to be much more challenged to be developed in the future, and there is the risk that reserves will start to stay in the ground. And I think that's leading to some of the urgency that we see on behalf of organisations and on behalf of governments in seeking to encourage the exploration and development of those resources. In fact, if you look, we're seeing effectively a race to FID within the LNG sector and a race to investment for some of the US LNG projects as well. To such an extent, we've seen around 70 million tonnes per annum of liquefaction capacity added during 2019, and there's the potential to add the same again to that next year as well. And then looking on the demand side, we've got the challenges around market uncertainty for the buyers, primarily brought along because of the decarbonisation agenda, bringing some concerns of the future of gas. And we've got the liberalisation of downstream markets, which means that the buyers are less confident in committing to long-term contracts that underpin upstream and midstream developments. Nonetheless, there is a positive story, and that's what we're here for. The LNG industry is expected to grow. We are seeing within the industry a time for more creativity around ensuring the efficient and effective use of existing infrastructure that's to be developed. We're seeing creativity around the business models and evolving those around certain projects. We're seeing creativity around the players that are entering in different points of the chain. And we're seeing creativity around addressing some of the environmental concerns, including gas flaring. And with that situation, it's quite exciting to be able to bring together a panel such as this that constitutes a diverse set of organisations, from industry bodies to LNG projects to international and regional upstream gas players. So thank you all for joining me. Mahdjouba, if I can hand over to you first and address this to you. The GECF, as an organisation that looks across the industry, what are some of the key challenges and solutions that your member countries are facing?
Thank you very much, Chris. First of all, allow me to thank the Equatorial Guinea, one of our member countries, for hosting a series of events of GECF, and particularly this seminar, and for the excellent organization. To come to your question, Chris, unfortunately I had 2 slides that illustrate what I'm going to say, but we were not allowed to present them. But anyway, so there are a lot of challenges from the perspective of GECF. One of them is the energy transition itself. Mm-hmm. So it's a challenge for the initiator of the project, for the ones we are all involved in. So, and here from this, the uncertainty is emerging. From the perspective of GECF as a group of major exporting countries, we see the lack of financing availability. And this is aggravated by the latest behavior or culture or strategies of banks for being reticent in financing fossil fuel, including gas projects. I can mention the European Investment Bank, which is phasing out the financing of fossil fuel projects by 2021, which is tomorrow. So the question is, what would be the future of the security of supply in EU, which is recurrently asked for. Also, we see the declining share of long-term contracts. We believe that long-term contracts are the backbone of the stability of the market. They give long-term visibility of the cash flow for us as a producer, and long-term also visibility from the buyers about their cash flows and their cash out. The price volatility. This morning, a lot has been said also about the low prices in one of the panels, low gas prices. We are witnessing an unprecedented low prices, convergence of prices to as low as below $4 by MMBTU. And this is not helping the industry to reactivate its upstream assets to provide such, the supply to the market. As producers also, we see that there is a timid access to technology. We are all using technologies which are not, local technologies. And also, I add to that the geopolitical risk and the restrictions that prevent member countries to unlock their huge gas resources to bring them to the market, but also prevent the consumers to access to energy, which is one of the major SDGs goals. From the demand side, we see that there is a poor awareness about the credentials of natural gas as a fuel of, for expansion and for development. Contrarily, it is seen as a fossil fuel that is emitting CO2, emitting methane, etc. So there is need of advocacy for natural gas in the consuming areas. Fuel competition with hidden subsidies and supportive energy policies which themselves are very uncertain and volatile, and we don't have any visibility on gas demand when we see these energy policies. And it has been proven that energy policies have been, and environmental policies have been defeated by economies. When coal is cheaper, so people, they just switch to coal and they don't use gas. And also the economic growth. So if we put these challenges in the equation from the supply and from the demand side, we see that the uncertainties are threatening the security of supply and security of demand. So what we see from our side, we GECF, that to reach an equilibrium or balance of this security of supply and demand, there is an importance to more dialogue, cooperation and investment. But this is maybe a pessimistic picture, but we have an optimistic picture, but I would say a realistic picture of the future of natural gas, which has been this morning mentioned by Dr. Centurion, the Secretary General of the GECF, and also my colleague Dimitri in the previous panel. So we see that the natural gas will be the fastest growing fossil fuel, and it will contribute to 27% of the energy mix by 2050. We see that there will be more expansion in the different sectors. In its natural sector, the combined cycle, the power generation, and this is due to the coal to gas switching. And we have seen that historically in the last decade, the coal to the technology, the switching from gas to coal could help to cut the CO2 emissions by more than 500 million in the last decade. So, which shows that how natural gas is is conformed to the SDGs and the environmental issues. Also, residential and commercial sector, we see also radical growth in this. Population will be growing fast, and people need to heat, when it is cold, to warm when it is cold, to cool when it is hot. The industrial sector also driven by value-added project based on natural gas. We heard this morning the distinguished panelists talking about gas to power, GTL, gas, petrochemical products, methanol, urea, etc. And in the transportation, where we see also a good future for natural gas, considering the regulations, for example, in transportation, IMO 2020, which is opening a more more doors for natural gas. So this is how we at GECF we see the situation, the challenges, but we are confident about our capacities, at our strength, and we saw this morning how much we are representing in terms of gas reserves, in terms of production, in terms of supply. We are dominant in all these fields. So we are confident that we will continue to contribute to the satisfaction of the gas demand.
Mahdjouba, thank you very much. There can always be a tendency to focus on some of the challenges of the industries and the problems that we're facing. And it's very important, the gas advocacy role, to push and communicate the strength of gas. Louis, the IGU obviously has a key role in the gas advocacy. What are some of the perspectives and messages that you're sharing to position gas and frame gas as part of the future energy mix?
Thank you, Chris. I would like also to join others to thank GECF for organizing this seminar and for Equatorial Guinea for inviting us and for this excellent forum. So as an international gas union, we are raising the global voice of gas, and we are trying to give you a little global picture on what we see that is happening and our outlook. So you remember that the Paris Agreement was signed in 2015, and the first big review will happen in 2020. So between 15 and 20, we have been discussing a lot about how we will measure, how we will be reporting, but now we are facing to reporting what we are doing. And I think all of us know that the national determined contribution that United Nations gathered is not enough to meet Paris Agreement deal. What that means? That means that every country is invited to review this energy policy and plans. And the answer is putting more gas on the energy mix. Let me give you 4 figures that is representing that. First of all, last year we saw a growth of global gas production and consumption of 4.9. Take 5 as an easy figure. 5% of the growth of the gas energy industry. What that means? Global demand growth grew only 2.5. If gas growth more than 2.5, that means that the gas is gaining a share of the global energy mix. And that is something that our outlooks and projections are seeing that will be happening in the future. But it's happening now. And it's the first time for more or less a decade which gas gain more share of the energy mix. And that will be happening still again in 2019. That is the first figure, growing faster than the global demand mix. Second item or second figure that is important to share with you is price. Price was reduced. The average price represented by the hubs around the world reduced around $2 million BTUs. Saying that in front of the exporter countries, I take some risk, but allow me say that good price is our best tool to really disseminate our industry around the world. We are growing because our energy is also affordable. And we are growing because the technology allows to reach more corners in the world. We have been discussing about virtual pipelines, we have discussing new technologies. We are asking everyone to make energy efficiencies in their processes and in their industry. Gas industry is also called to make efficiencies, and we are looking at that. And we are doing. So we are providing more efficiency. Today we have a smaller scale of affordable. We have floating units going faster to give an access to the energy, etc., etc. So price will give this affordability, this competitiveness to allow gas industry to grow. Then we have another figure, the trade. The trade, global trade, grew also 4%. That means that even every country has been increasing their own demand. We have been collaborating between countries. So once the exports have been growing, the imports have been growing, and we are collaborating. And Africa has been reducing the imports and growing the production and the consumption. It's good news on this side. And finally, building capacities in pipelines and liquefaction and LNG also has been growing capacities. We hope that this capacity will be filled with some gas. So all these four figures represent that we are growing faster than the demand, and is showing how gas is responding in an affordable way to meet the climate change. And final data. The final investment decisions that we had in 2019 has been so big and bigger than the last 2 or 3 years. That means that also the industry is really committed to deliver more and more gas to the world, which really is thirsty of energy. That is our point of view on growing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You talked there about the success of the LNG, the gas and LNG sector going forward. We shouldn't forget, and sort of bringing this to a more regional focus, the tremendous success that West Africa has had in LNG exports, particularly with EG LNG and Nigeria LNG. And going forward, those projects and expansions to those projects are very well positioned to meet some of the changing buyers' needs in this world. Buyers looking for potentially shorter term contracts, reduced volume in their contracts, increased flexibility from their suppliers. And that's obviously in the round. I'm particularly keen to hear from Bryan on the future of EG LNG in that environment and what approaches you're taking around the project.
Okay, thank you, Chris. First off, my congratulations to the MMH Minister, His Excellency Gabriel Imbaga Obiang Lima, for such an outstanding forum that that's been put on today here in our home area of Malabo. As the managing director of EG LNG, it's my pleasure here today to direct and represent a key Equatorial Guinea gas exporter here at this international conference and here in our home city of Malabo. I wanted to open my remarks by saying that I do agree with His Excellency Minister Gabriel in his statement that gas is good for Africa. As African countries demand gas for their power generation and development, what we would like is to champion a greater regional collaboration between the Gulf of Guinea countries that will allow the huge volumes of stranded gas from the region to be developed and to be monetized. As gas becomes the fuel of choice, ample opportunities are available in this region to support the growth of this valuable market and the vision of His Excellency Minister Gabriel for LNG to Africa. Punta Europa, where I work, which includes EG LNG, MEGPL, and AMCO, is a world-class gas processing complex that provides the region with a unique opportunity to reliably process their respective gas without the capital costs required for new infrastructure. Punta Europa is the biggest employer in Malabo, with a strong emphasis on development and nationalization of its workforce. In his keynote address, His Excellency Minister Gabriel made reference to the vision of the gas megahub. As the center of the gas megahub, EG LNG is strategically located to be a key processor of gas throughout the Gulf of Guinea. Declining gas volumes from reservoirs provide an opportunity for EG LNG to process other gas sources. So it's not only about building capacity, it's about using capacity that is already built. And that is the future of EG LNG. EG LNG, through its 12 years, has proven to be a highly successful operation with a world-class reliability and safety record, which includes the offloading of nearly 700 cargoes since its inception. A significant plus is that EGLNG came online in 2007 and eliminated the flaring of gas at Punta Europa, which is one of the items that was talked about His Excellency the President wanting to get rid of the fireball. And that's exactly what EGLNG and the other facilities at Punta Europa have been able to do. You know, as an LNG processing plant, EGLNG is a fairly new facility. And as I previously mentioned, you know, it's strategically located for utilizing its spare capacity for Gulf of Guinea gas. EGLNG has the capacity, as I said, without the cost of building new infrastructure. When considering the main challenge of monetizing gas is the investment for new facilities, the use of existing facilities is most cost effective. At the Africa Oil Week in Cape Town earlier this month, His Excellency Minister Gabriel mentioned the importance of jobs for Equatorial Guinea. We see keeping EGLNG and Punta Europa functioning at its full capacity for many years. It not only sustains jobs, but also has the potential for creating additional opportunity through cross-border cooperation.
Thank you very much, Bryan. I think it's a really key point you've touched upon there is the efficient and the effective use of the existing infrastructure going forward. And you look at the mature basins, I particularly will think of North Sea examples given where I'm from, and the way players are working together to utilise and maximise the ongoing effectiveness of that infrastructure. And we're seeing, I talked about the creativity and different people entering the chain. You see the infrastructure funds, the sovereign wealth funds buying into those assets and seeking to extend the life of them and almost encourage other upstream players to use them and utilise them. Tom, we've heard there from the perspective of a very big multinational organisation, LNG player. I'm really interested to hear from you sort of Amni's experience with, unfortunately not yet, maybe in the future, having that scale of resources to monetize and some of your experience that you've faced in the region.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Chris. And thanks to EG for allowing us to participate today. It's a real honor to be up here and representing Amni. So, you know, Amni's been around for quite a while. I'll give you a little backstory. You know, we've been around for over 20 years, but we're predominantly an oil producer. And we've been sitting on a significant gas resource that's in the order of 3 TCF of gas. So that's in two fields, fairly shallow water, and we really feel like now is the time to be able to unlock that gas resource. So tying in with some of the other panel members here, certainly create some creativity. To monetize gas in West Africa, as we all know, takes a lot of infrastructure. That can be midstream infrastructure, downstream infrastructure, and trying to match that with some creative financing opportunities. So being able to align and collaborate with various partners, albeit government bodies, other industry players, to unlock that gas and create a full value stream, not just the upstream, but the midstream side of it, marketing, and then providing eventually molecules to end users. So we've been working hard with our 3 TCF of gas on looking at various solutions. Some of those include kind of some of the obvious things. You go out and look at existing facilities. As Bryan said, if you've got existing facilities there, that's a good opportunity for you. But also some of the newer technology. We think some of the newer technology is maybe not quite as new as we once thought. I think you're seeing floating LNG take off. You're seeing lower cost floating LNG now, where some of the initial facilities that were built were very, very expensive. In particular, if you looked at them on a million ton per annum basis, they were very, very expensive. You're seeing those trending down. So we think floating LNG's come a long ways, and that's certainly one solution that we see as continuing to advance and gaining momentum. But it also requires a lot of capital. So to build those facilities, you need to have financiers lined up. As we said before, you probably need some quite long offtake agreements to underpin that financing. And really, you need collaboration with both your partners and the governments to make that all happen. So we're looking at a lot of different options in our space, including, local power generation, chemical business, and obviously ability to make liquefied natural gas. So we're pretty excited at the moment. I know some of the discussions here were a little bit of the glass half empty. We see the tremendous growth of natural gas. I think several of the statistics have been thrown out on the tremendous emission reductions that you can see. And what shocks me is we're still in a world of building a tremendous number of coal plants. Today, there's several hundred coal plants under construction. So that's not continuing life, it's new build coal plants that can easily be displaced with cleaner natural gas. I think everybody around the world is becoming more and more environmentally focused. And I think that's the opportunity where natural gas can fit in, not just in power generation, which I think is the easiest nut to crack here because power generation is a natural fit for gas, but also around transportation and chemicals. So we're excited. We're sitting on a great gas resource. It's very economic to develop, and we're excited to be out in the market figuring out how to monetize.
I think you touched a good point there, sort of talking about the story of gas. And Louis, this one's going to come in your direction, just to warn you. I think the rationale for gas is very different in different geographies around the world. How do you, as the IGU, sort of tend to tell that story in different places at different stages of development?
Thank you, Chris. That's true that we have different approaches in different areas, and maybe we can talk a little about Africa and maybe Europe was mentioned. But globally, monetizing really gas is because gas is good for Africa, but good for everyone. I said that everyone need to put gas on their energy mix in the future. Power generation has been used to do the traditional demand for really going up, but in the outlooks that we have now, it's good to say that also industrialization as the biggest users of gas in the outlooks to 2040. So that means that it's not only, for first time I think that the forecast, the outlook is providing bigger figures in industrialization users rather than only power generation. Very close, but first time that industrialization. So that means that really gas is not only for be fire and creating electricity, but also for creating economic development. And I am very happy to be listening this initiative, the LNG to Africa, and having this hub, because it's thinking that it's not only gas for be exporting, it's only to be using and for economic development in Africa, and been creating the regional hubs and regional markets, providing itself the energy needs. That is, to me, very important. And the other sector, which has been mentioned also, is gas for transportations. Maybe I can add that in the point of view of IGU, gas for transportations and air quality, which has been not mentioned before, are two topics that IGU will be presenting in 1 week in COP25 in Madrid. Gas contributions for everyone need to understand that we need to provide air quality, quality of life to the civilizations and to the cities. So gas is key enough to provide the affordability, the availability, and the security of supply to improve our industrialization, to improve our people going out of the poverty, and to improve the cleaning the air on the cities being used also for transportation. So, summarizing, for Africa, I think that more gas is needed. I am very happy that the forecast that we have now ahead is doing gas not only for exports, but only be used for industrialization in Africa is needed. And I'm very happy, and also developing the uses for transportation. These two things are very important for us. Europe is a special case. that has been said that they will not financing fossil fuels, but it's not true. We need to read at the details. They said if fossils are not meeting climate change, but if you put gas, fossil with combining carbon capture and storage, they will be financing. If you put combined heating and power, they will be financing. And if you put green gas, renewable gas, biomethane, synthetic gas produced from renewables, they will be still financing. So we need to read careful, but well, globally we disagree on the statement on saying that globally we will not finance fossil energies. But going to the details, we need to understand that really it's still doing, and even when they are also financing the end users of the high energy efficiency heatings and power systems. Okay.
May I just maybe react to what you have mentioned regarding the financing of the banks to the project. They are phasing it out, yes, under some conditions. But the condition they have put, because they said after 2021, but the condition they have put is to have 50 gram, they will finance only the project that will guarantee that they will be emitting less than 50 gram of CO2 for each kilowatt hour generated. This means that the CCS technology needs to be here. Well, it's not proven at world scale, so implicitly it's not financing. And we all know that gas has always and is always blamed for having emitting CO2 and emitting methane, while we know that methane is the only greenhouse gas which has value on the market. So industry in GECF, we are all considering these issues through R&D, and each individual country is doing it anyway to recover this to reduce the methane leakage, to identify, to detect it, and to use it as a marketed product. So this, our reading of this banks refusing or stopping financing fossil fuel products, it's not as optimistic as well, because the condition of the technology is like tomorrow, by 2021, I have to tell them, okay, gas will produce, we have to have certainty on the technology. When the technology will be world scale, when can it be used cheap, and that is the question.
Mm-hmm. So no, I can add that we disagree with this statement, but there are some positive looks still. And we claim that we need to ensure that that is not followed up for others, because if that is happening in Europe is one thing, that they have a big infrastructure, but they cannot stop the development of infrastructure that is needed around the world. In this way, we agree totally with that. So we would like that they don't extend this practice to other regions, because the infrastructure and investment is needed around the world for developing gas industry.
I will touch on another point that that was made, and that's around security of supply. And as an operator and as an operating facility, one of the things that's very key, especially when we're trying to attract other gas sources, is our ability to operate reliably and provide that security of supply. And I think that for any plant anywhere in the world, including Malabo, including Africa, including anywhere, we have to be able, for our off-takers, be able to provide that security of supply, such that when the tankers come, they know that we're going to be ready to that we are going to be ready to deliver. And I think that's as we start to attract third-party gas, that's going to be very important to the to the people that that are wanting to use our plant.
And what sort of benchmarks and what sort of things will you be looking at for other potential suppliers?
Well, what we, from our, when I'm talking about security of supply, I'm talking about security of our ability to supply.
Yes.
LNG, from what we have. So the benchmark that we look at, from a world-class benchmark, for instance, 98% uptime, is considered to be, a world class of something that at Punta Europa, we beat year in and year out. So I think that's a, very, a critical aspect, at least to our current off-taker, is that we do provide that, that security of supply with, to their marketing.
And maybe this is a question for both Bryan and Tom. In terms of looking at additional feed gas, we talked about the continued utilisation of infrastructure when there's capacity available. In looking at the feed gas supply, I suppose, Tom, what's the picture that you'd like to be able to paint for to put your reserves forward and promote your reserves?
Sure. I think, Amni looks a little bit like real estate. So it's location, location, location. Clearly, the quality of the resource is very, very important. But where you're located, there's no secret that gas molecules aren't all that easy to move around, right? Mm-hmm. So short proximity, not a problem. Pipelining is obviously a very common practice. Much longer distances, it takes massive facilities like Bryan's sitting on to do that. So as we're looking at our potential monetization options, obviously you want to look at existing facilities, but we feel like the location and the quality of the resource. So we've got nearly 3 TCF that's fully delineated. So it's got a number of wells drilled on it. It's not a single exploration well. So I think quality of the resource, location, and then ultimately you need to find a win-win partnership. You really have to work with the other side. That might be somebody who's buying the gas from you. That might be financiers, as we're talking about. In particular, for a smaller upstream player, financing plays an absolute critical role in being able to execute gas projects, because even a fairly small gas project is still a lot of capital. So being able to find that win-win solution and being able to coordinate with both downstream folks as well as midstream people, and ultimately lining up the financing with regular supply and availability, as Bryan said, I think is important.
And yes, absolutely. From a facility standpoint, that's one of the key aspects we look at, is the security of the feed gas supply. Yes. Because we have to ensure that whoever we're contracting with has that technology and ability and proven record to operate, because we just can't afford that that up and down off on sort of feed gas.
Yeah, and having the right commercial structures in place to support that.
Yeah, I would like to add, following my colleagues on this really contribution to the security of supply, that last year 2.5 million tons project come online in Cameroon. So we had 19 countries exporting, which can be chosen for importers. And you know that we have also Yemen staying in a political situation that could be resuming in the near future also the exports. And also we mentioned this morning that Argentina started the first cargo, but could be also in the future coming to export. So that is a good chain of diversity of supply. But in the other side of the importing countries, last year we had also 2 new countries importing. One was Panama, another was Bangladesh. Bangladesh used a floating unit and Panama onshore. But also again, with that we had 37 importing countries. So the pace that one country now can get access to the gas now is so easy. In less than 2 years they can have access to the market of LNG. So it's really creating a lot of security of supply, diversity, and access to a gas which is moving to a commodity available around the world.
Yes. To complement also from the point of view of GECF, and as far as GECF is concerned in terms of security of supply, we have seen this morning, all the figures related to the reserves, production, supply by LNG and by pipeline, where we are dominant in all this. But GECF has always historically been a resilient supplier a trustable supplier, and it has been supporting even its partners in difficult moments. The Fukushima, I mean, was immediately, I mean, tackled by supplies from GECF, namely from Qatar. Also, GECF is conscious about the increase of gas demand, so this is why they're embarking in new projects. The pipeline project, we have more than 140 BCM of new pipeline that will come on stream by end of this year, or some of them they came on stream. They will cover like 16%, 13% of European gas demand, and the current level of the gas demand. 16% of Chinese gas demand, or 17% of the current Chinese gas demand, plus the LNG also. We have, there is one FID project, FID which have been taken this year. The next wave, I mean this year and next year, we expect to take FID to have as a total 86 million ton additional capacity. So this is showing how GECF is, committed to secure the gas supply to the global market. Again, I reiterate that we are confident that the gas demand will be increasing, but the thing is, this uncertainty is having a negative impact on the prices. So are we recovering the prices? Because we have to make the difference between the gas producer, which is exporting, and the trader. The gas producer has cost over all the value chain, from exploration until bringing the molecule of gas to the city to have light. Okay, but the trader, he's just paying OPEX. I mean, he has a screen and taking the BTU from here and there. So this is very important. We need to bring awareness about this. I mean, when we say affordable gas, cheap gas, okay, how cheap is it? I mean, of course, as producers, we are making a lot of efforts, I mean, each country individually, and even we discussed this in GECF for more efficient, cost rate optimization, and it is one of our objectives in the long-term strategy. And for that, when we are confident also, we believe that R&D should accompany all this supply. So this is why the member countries decided to have a gas research institute to be located in Algeria that will tackle all the technological issues and allow natural gas from GECF to be, more competitive and. Voilà.
Thank you. The importance of recognising the full cost along the chain. Very quickly, just to conclude this, and sort of relatively swift answers from the panelists, if I may. If you could imagine me in a fairy godmother outfit, and I have my magic wand, and I can take away one of the challenges for you that you see in future monetisation of gas, what would that be? And Tom, I'll start with you.
Okay. Price stability, I think, is a big one for me, because price stability has knock-on impacts into financing and other things. But getting long-term price stability then allows a lot of the other dominoes to fall. So I think price stability is a big one.
Brilliant, thank you.
Short and sweet. If EGLNG is to be the center of the gas mega hub for the Gulf of Guinea, cross-border agreements need to be worked out. That is, that is certainly something that is very critical for making the vision of the gas mega hub happen.
And from my point of view, for gas monetization, we will invite to mobilizing investments and have supportive government policies to do that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Mahdjouba?
They are all intertwined, I mean, all these challenges, but I will not ask, since I don't have any other choice, so I would go for investment in infrastructure, because we believe that so many people don't have access to energy, and this is in compliance with the SDGs, the access to affordable and clean energy. We have, the resources, but we need to invest strongly in infrastructure, storage, pipeline, distribution, regas terminals, and so if you can help in that, so.
Thank you. I hope that sort of in a very short and sweet 45-minute conversation, I hope that's sort of given the audience and the panelists some different views on gas monetisation and some of the challenges the industry face. Not an easy fix to make, but as we've seen from the success stories along the way, we're getting there, and the gas industry is a resilient one, if nothing else. So, Mahdjouba, Louis, Bryan, Tom, thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.